Hey everybody, Tekking here with another discussion video, sort of a different format with this one, apparently because the last time I did this, it was really successful. It was kind of funny, I did the, what's the deal with Toshiro's Bankai video, like just a discussion with no editing, no clever anything, and I'm just talking about Toshiro's Bankai, and that video ended up becoming way more popular than the review. Like, I talked about the actual chapter, and then I'm like, yeah, there's a few things I forgot, and I made this 20-minute video, no editing, nothing, just uploaded it, and that ended up getting, like, double the views, so logic, I don't know. But anyway, I decided to do that with the other Bankais that have been revealed recently, and the issue with this, I feel, is that Kubo seems to be rushing through these. Have you seen that? Have you got that impression? Because these are characters like Shunsui and Kenpachi and Urahara that we've wanted to see their Bankai for years, and there was like a lot of build-up for this final arc, like, man, maybe we might get to see them, and I had no doubt in my mind that we were going to see Shunsui's and Uraharas in this arc. I didn't think we were going to see Kenpachi's, but, you know, I had no doubt that we're going to see Shunsui's and Uraharas, but I didn't expect all three of them to be, like, crammed, like, right after another, and it's very kind of... It's this kind of jarring movement where it feels like a lot of people might have already forgotten about Shunsui and Urahara's Bankai. It's like Kubo's like, okay, here's Shunsui's fight, he goes Bankai, alright, great, fight's over, moving on. Here's Urahara's fight, he goes Bankai, okay, great, moving on. Here's Kenpachi's. It's just all this shit, like, clustered together. It just seems like Kubo's rushing, or he was gonna do something earlier and he didn't have time to do it, so he's just cramming everything in now. I just want to address these, because I feel like a lot of people might have been forgetting them, and we might not ever get to see them the rest of the series. Like Urahara and Shunsui, they looked pretty fucking wrecked after their fights against Lilia and Askin, respectively, so I don't think they're going to be showing back up anytime soon, you know, fit as a fiddle to use their Bankais again, especially not Shunsui's, which apparently, you know, to be very careful using it with, you could possibly die. But we're not here to talk about Shunsui. I will make his video later. We're talking about Urahara's Bankai in this video, which is Kanen Barake Benehime Atarame, or some other variation of how that is pronounced. So, Urahara, I should set up, like, even more so than Shunsui and Kenpachi, is probably one of the most hyped Bankai in the entire series, okay? Because this is a character we knew about way at the beginning, like at the Substitute arc. Now, granted, we did not know what a Bankai was during the Substitute arc. In fact, we just learned about the idea of a Shikai right at the end of the Substitute arc. But when Yoruichi was revealing to Ichigo about the two stages of Zanpakuto release, Shikai and Bankai, she, like, immediately after that also revealed, like, okay, the method that I'm going to use to teach you Bankai, Ichigo, is the same method that Urahara created with the Tenshin Tai, implying that Urahara has used this method and he has attained his Bankai. So we found out about Urahara being the former captain of 12th Division right alongside Yoruichi explaining Shikai and Bankai right next to when she confirms that, yes, Urahara does indeed have a Bankai. So it conjured up a lot of intrigue, like, right off the bat, and we didn't really know. I mean, we knew Shunsui was sort of a badass. We didn't really know the full extent of his character. We knew Kenpachi was a badass, but we didn't know the full extent yet. And Urahara, for years and years and years, we're talking, like, easily a decade, Bleach fans have been like, when's his fucking Bankai? And this is something that has been not really that hinted that much, honestly. Kubo hasn't really dropped a lot of hints throughout the series. The only time that it was really mentioned was this time right here in chapter 224 when, you know, Renji, Urahara comes to Renji to ask him to train Chad because he's like, oh, he needs the power of a Bankai, and Renji's basically, like, freeloading off of Urahara at this point, but he's basically like, why don't you train him then? You have a frickin' Bankai, I know who you are. And Urahara says this, he says, the ability to train or lend power to people, my Bankai just is not capable of such things, and that's pretty much all we got up until 400-something chapters later when his Bankai was actually properly revealed at the end of the fight, during his fight with Askin. Which is also kind of curious that he would say that. It's not suited for lending powers to other people when we see what it can do. That's kind of weird. But anyway, yeah, his Bankai itself, upon activation, manifests his Zanpakuto spirit, very similar to Shunsui's, which takes the appearance of a woman, very thin, very slender, with a robe that's hanging open, and then her hair is also styled in a very interesting kind of form, like a bun sort of deal. I'm assuming the hair is red because one of the whole Benehime translates to red princess, or crimson princess is a better translation, so I have no doubt in my mind that her hair is probably red. And a lot of people have been saying, like, what's the connection? What's the overall theme of Urahara's Bankai? Let's discuss that first, because his Shikai seems like all over the place. At first, it was like, okay, it can shoot out like red energy waves similar to Getsuga. It can make a shield of blood mist. And then during his fight with Eyes, and it's like, oh, I'm lighting shit on fire and like combustion and shit. It's like, okay, what's going on here, Urahara? And then, going into his Bankai, it seems like it's something that's completely different. So, the one theory I discussed in the review was its adaptability. It's like, no matter what the situation, Urahara is able to modify his Zanpakuto or adapt to it in anything. Another way of looking at it is it's like the purest keto-based Zanpakuto. Now, when I say purest keto-based, what I'm talking about is, like, we have keto-based Zanpakutos like Momo Hinamori's Tobi Yume, which basically, it's a fire type, but the keto is like the catalyst. You know, she can channel her keto through her Zanpakuto, and the keto appears in the form of fire. You know, it can shoot fireballs and shit. But it's still limited to fire. But she can still channel keto into it. I want to think Urahara is similar to that. Like, he's a keto master. So he can channel the keto into his Benihime. And he can basically do anything he wants with it. So that's how he was able to make the nets to trap eyes and in the little, you know, explosive balls. And he can, I think he shot keto out of it before, out of his Shikai. I don't know if that's accurate. He might have. I know he did it with his cane once. He did like a modified keto, like a modified Byakurai against Aizen. So that's another way of looking at it. It's like just pure keto-based, and Urahara has the run of it. You also have to look to it very similar to the way Mayori's Zanpakuto's is. Now, Mayori, if I was just going to say like what his Bankai, what his Zanpakuto ability is overall in just like one or two words, I would say Mayori's Bankai is poison-based. But because he's a mad scientist and he like experiments constantly changing around his Zanpakuto and adding new shit to it, you know, it's poison-based still, but there's so much more to it. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe Urahara's is the same way, you know, and he just completely went crazy and overhauled it. So anyway, we have his Bankai here. Now, the ability that he displayed in his fight with Askin is that through the woman behind him, I don't really know what the point the woman serves, but he's basically able to restructure or revive anything that he wants with his Bankai in the form of these stitch patterns that appear on his face, or anywhere on his body that he's changing. He was modifying it in the form of his, when he got his eyes destroyed by Askin. Now, keep in mind also, when his eyes were destroyed by Askin, apparently they were gone, they were dead. It wasn't like, I'm trying to figure out a good way to describe this. It wasn't just like his eyes were cut or sliced open or anything like that. Like when Askin's, death ring struck him and it exploded, it was like gone, like his eye pretty much was just destroyed, you know? And with his revive abilities, he was basically able to restructure it completely. And then later on in the fight against Askin, he like disassembled his entire hand and then reassembled it again, and it didn't look any different. The only way it looked different was like there was stitches on it. That's why I was confused at first. I'm like, what happened? It's like his arm separated, then it reformed itself, but nothing looked physically different, and then he attacked Askin with it. Upon many comments that I received, it was basically like it got stronger. He reformed his arm to make it more stronger to fight against Askin. He like pushed him back. I think in that situation, though, if he made his arm stronger, wouldn't it be like, I would assume it would make it more muscular, maybe something, Kubo, just to give us a hint as to something changed, you know, make his arm a little bit more buffer, maybe change the color of it, something, if he made it that much stronger, but whatever. Also something he did during his fight with Askin, and I love this. I called this the act of zippering, and basically what happened is Askin's arm got split, like, right up the side with Benihime Atarame's ability. Now, the thing is, we don't get to see what really happened with this, because Askin immediately backs up, and his Bankai has a definitive range. Like, Urahara even confirmed this. Like, my Bankai is only active within this range, so Askin jumped back, and it's sealed up. So I'm curious, though, like, this is one of the things where I'm saying, Kubo, are you, like, rushing through this? Because that would be really interesting to see if Askin didn't move, like, what Urahara was going to do here. Because we only saw his Bankai really modifying himself. We never really saw him modify Askin or anything like that. We saw him mess with Askin's barrier using his Bankai, but not his arm. Like, not Askin, his opponent, or anybody else. Not Grimjow, not anyone. So, yeah, I don't know. I would assume, though, and this is kind of a little bit grisly, but I would assume, considering that his Bankai, you know, it's all, like, biological sort of deal, like restructuring the human body and stuff, you know, he would be able to move anything around at will if he had complete control over the human body and just, like, I'm going Bankai now, I'm going to restructure you all, and he moves organs around and stuff, replace it with new things. I mean, seems like it's completely within his realms of possibility. Something else I brought up was, I keep saying something else, no, but something else that I feel like not a lot of people mentioned is that, remember those zombies that showed up at the when Mayuri was fighting against Giselle, Sternritter Z? Those zombies that appeared all had stitches on their bodies that looked remarkably similar to the way Urahara looked after he modified himself with his Bankai. Stitches all over him. Now, you could just say, oh, that's just something different, that's Kubo's art style, that was Mayuri fucking around, but you have to keep in mind, Urahara was there in the laboratory when the whole, when he was working with Mayuri, 40 chapters before this. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. And also, why did it take so long for Mayuri to break out the zombies? It's weird. It's like these zombies, if he had these for so long, he just started getting to them now, because the zombies were apparently recovered from Sile's lab, but this was 2 years ago, and you're just getting around to using these things now. And Loopy, in particular, was the one that was the biggest mindfuck, because it was like Charlotte, Dordoni, and Chiruchi, yeah, they got defeated by their opponents, they got pretty messed up, but they weren't their bodies were still in one piece. Loopy's body was, half of it was incinerated by Grimmjow. How do you do that? How do you bring back somebody perfectly whose half of his body was obliterated by a Sero, And, the other weird thing is that, with Charlotte, Coolhorn, his body wasn't even killed by physical damage by Yumachika. He had his Ryatsu basically sucked dry by Ruryo Kujaku. So I think it's perfectly plausible, in fact very likely, that Urahara's, he's in Mayuri's lab, he sees these zombie things around, he goes Bankai, he's just switching some things around, fixes up Loopy. Because the way I think his Bankai works, of how he restructured the eyes, is it basically took, a sample of his own DNA and, just used that as a catalyst to revive any part of the body. Because once I said the eyes were fucking gone, Loopy's top half of his body was fucking gone. If you want to talk about, cloning and restructuring and using part of the body to, completely make a whole new one, fine, that's cool, that's great. It just seems that, Urahara's Bankai is very suited to doing that. So I'm going to say that, and he can mess with the internal organs. Something else that he did that was kind of a little bit confusing with his fight with Askin is that he was able to basically open up his portal, his Death Ball Deluxe thing. He's surrounded by... He was able to open up a gap in it using his stitching, and that's the gap that allowed Grimmjow to enter, and also Nell had to jump through that to, pick them all up. And it's very clear, a stitch pattern there. So Urahara was able to, I somehow breached the unbreachable border that Askin set up. Whether he had his Bankai go outside of it, that's still a little bit confusing how that happened. Because, Urahara made it sound like, oh, it's unbreachable from the inside out, but not from the outside in. And I'm like, okay, but you still went Bankai inside the barrier, so how did you manage to open up a hole on the outside? Unless he's like, well, bitch, I'm Urahara, my Bankai's stronger than yours, your ability, screw you. So what do you guys think about Urahara's Bankai? What do you think about the stuff that it could do, the full potential of this? Because this is something that could very easily, I don't want to say revive the dead, but I kind of want to say revive the dead. It obviously took a lot out of him. He was drained at the end of that fight. I mean, I understand, yeah, also Askin poisoning, that was kind of a big factor too. After he was collapsing though, before he was rescued by Neliel, you see the blood erupting out of his stitching, so it might be possible that the healing properties of his Bankai only last while he's in Bankai, It doesn't, it's the stitch work doesn't last always, I'm not sure. It's also one of those Bankais that work similar to Tozen's, where Tozen goes into Bankai and he just uses his regular sealed sword for combat. Urahara jumped, he didn't even bother with the Shikai with Askin, he just jumped right to Bankai, and then he was using his cane sword, and the stitches were kind of clinging to him and following around, and he could just mess with whatever. But this seems like a really missed opportunity on Kubo's part. He really could have done a lot of cool shit with this. And he seems like, oh man, okay, I would love to stick on Urahara's Bankai, but I gotta get to Kenpachi's and Toshiro's and Final Battles, and I got stuff coming up if I want to get this series done by Chapter 700, so I gotta keep moving. I don't know if the series is ending by Chapter 700. I'm just saying, if Kubo wants to pull a Kishimoto and he's keeping a nice round number, but I still think there's a little bit too much going on here to end this whole thing, and less than 30 chapters. But then again, Naruto kind of dropped a lot of shit on us in the last 30 chapters too, with like the whole existence of Kaguya and Black Zetsu and everything. So, you know, not impossible. But we'll see. We shall see. But anyway, yeah, leave your comments below on what you think Urahara's Bankai. What do you think of it? You think he'll use it again in the series? What do you think the full potential of it is and the stuff that he could have done with it, but he didn't? And your opinion on the zombie thing. I'm curious about that. Alright, so anyway, thanks you guys for watching. I'll be doing another one of these videos coming up based on Shunsui's and possibly Kenpachi's. I don't know about Kenpachi, because I feel like there's still a lot of stuff that Kubo's going to reveal, because Kubo, he didn't even reveal the name of his Bankai, or what the deal is with Yachiru, so I still think that's coming up here. But yeah, look forward to Shunsui's one, most definitely. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Tekking, signing out.